Hello everybody, Crit Crab here with another story, and this...
Sorry, Crit Crab. Looks like I'll be telling my own story today. All respect to Crit Crab as an inspiration for this video. Please don't get upset. This is something I've wanted to do for some time now, as I've been playing tabletop RPGs for about 8 years now, and I figured that it would be time to tell you guys a few stories of my time playing. Not all bad, but definitely interesting to talk about, or at least I think so. This first episode is going to talk about my very first experiences with tabletop games, and focuses on DM NPCs. Just as a disclaimer, despite what I've got to say here about DM NPCs, it doesn't mean that they can't be done or that they are bad for gameplay, but with no restraint or control, things can spiral out of it pretty bad. With all that said, let's get into it. I got into tabletop games in late 2014. My brother began playing with his roommate and girlfriend, and it seemed pretty cool at the time. I was already an avid role player online and wanted to learn how to play myself. My brother invited me out to play Pathfinder 1st Edition with his friends, and I set off after work. The DM, my brother's friend, we'll call him John, helped me set up my first character, a level 1 fighter named Jotzi. I didn't know anything about Pathfinder at the time, so I just rolled with whatever John told me to do, and so I ended up joining mid-campaign, so everyone was just a few levels higher than I was, but not by too much, about at the point where they all had access to their subclass. While not a stickler for the rules, John did his best to remain within the rules of Pathfinder 1st Edition, but added a little bit of Homebrew to make the game's introduction a little more interesting. To start, everyone was given one magical item. I can't remember what John's girlfriend got, but I got a simple amulet that increased my strength. Again, I was a super new player and I didn't really understand anything else. My brother had gotten himself a sword forged from the spine of a red dragon. Pretty much, it was just a great sword that dealt additional fire damage. My brother was playing as a half-orc barbarian, Wolf. The spine sword became something of a signature weapon. As the DM thought that we would eventually outgrow our original magical item, he didn't expect Wolf's weapon to end up scaling so well with his class and level. We hadn't played for a while after some time though, and about a year later my brother hits me back up saying that he was going to start his very own campaign soon, and that I could bring my fighter or make someone completely new. I opted to make a new character as I wanted to play as Carl from the Law of Talos series. It was a bit complicated to figure out what class or race Carl would be since he didn't really fit into anything we knew about, so my brother did some digging and found a homebrew race known as the Reluk, which are basically animated statues, which is perfect for Carl. Still, with no class in mind, we opted to wait until the first session to finalize everything. Work had picked up quite a bit at the time, so I ended up missing our first session together, but my brother decided to finish and introduce my character to everyone on the first session anyway. Side note, DMs, please avoid doing something like this if you don't get permission from the player. How you represent the character can be disingenuous to how the actual player may end up playing them, which can cause some conflict with other characters. Anyway, the second session rolls around and I manage to make it and I begin playing. My brother hands me my character sheet and I get into character. I assume the role as some sort of berserk tank, with no class still assigned. And this becomes a running theme in most campaigns after. My natural armor as a Reluk made it particularly easy to tank hits from enemies, and my cocky attitude made it easy for me to maintain their attention. I met the rest of the team at this point. A bard, who was quiet and reserved, a sea goddess, a shapeshifter, and an alchemist. I had no idea why we were all together, but I just rolled with it since I just wanted to have a good time. My brother played the role of the Alchemist. Now this concept in theory sounds kind of neat. The idea of a ragtag motley crew of adventurers going out with an alchemist to gain research sounds fine. Maybe the alchemist is frail and needs protection, or maybe he's researching something that we can all get on board with, so we want to help him and make sure that that idea comes to fruition. Note how I say, in theory. Here's the problem with all of that. We're all level 1 characters who know almost nothing about the world we're in. The Alchemist, Zov, was level 15. In a game where the max level is 20, what in the world will level 15 need from 4 level 1 characters with no experience in your world? Maybe we can all learn something different and come together to help Zov with his research? Nope. Zov knew every single thing from every known universe, always. Okay, maybe he's frail and needs protection because he's all book smarts and with no battle capabilities. Nope. Zov was stronger than everyone in our entire party. I'm talking over 20s in every stat. He had more intelligence than our casting shapeshifter, had more charisma than our bard, more AC and health than our tank, despite not wearing armor. And if for some reason there was an obstacle that he couldn't surpass, Zov had an endless bag, which we found out later contained an entire separate universe, that contained every single conceivable potion that would give him anything he needed. It only calls back to the question from earlier. Why are we even there? On the surface, I understand what my brother wanted to do with Zov. He wanted the party to have basically an encyclopedia of the world on hand at any time, and wanted to make sure the party could handle any combat encounter he ran into. Only issue is that the world was completely uninteresting, and he geared all the combat to accommodate Zov's stats. It meant that the party would be fighting enemies well above our skill level, with AC that was so high that if we didn't land 20s, we wouldn't hit anything. This meant that Zov would have to come out and save us from the threat every single time. I guess my brother wanted us to regard him as a hero, but both my character and myself were getting very irritated. Don't tell Zov that, of course. Our shapeshifting character mildly sassed him at one point. Some snarky comment, I forget, but nothing major, simply poking fun at friends. Zov responded by beating his character within an inch of his life, forcing him unconscious, teleporting them several thousand feet into the air, and dropping them, effectively killing them instantly, only to pull a potion out of his bag and resurrect them moments later. How player hostile even is that? At what point can a character, no even a player, ever come back from that kind of experience without a huge chip on their shoulder? Our shapeshifter character never really came back after that, and I don't blame him. To further push the point that Zov was meant to be this solution to all of our problems, Carl picked up blacksmithing in hopes of producing or upgrading weapons enough to ensure that we could at least hit the enemy from time to time. I remember upgrading my weapons up to about a +5, and everyone else's weapons, besides Zov's, up to about a +2. Only for my brother to state, why didn't you just ask Zov to make you new weapons? He's a blacksmith too. To which I completely blew up at this point. How can you possibly ask us why we didn't want anything from Zov? The dude is so psychotic that he killed someone for talking to him wrong. He's the most shady character we have in this damn party, and he only looks out for himself. And what do you mean he's a blacksmith too? All this time you've only ever talked about how he can make just about any potion. Potion this, potion that, just potions. Not once, not one damn time did you ever mention blacksmithing until Carl started doing it himself. Not my best moment, but the bottom line was drawn. We were not liking Zov's influence. I got up and left the table after that. It'd be a few weeks before we got together again for what would end up being my last session with the party. We were visiting the world the sea goddess came from, and we were attacked by a Kraken. Instead of playing at our usual card shop we've been playing at for a while, people came to my place to play instead. I had to step away from the table a few times during the session, but never for more than a few minutes at a time. When we got to the Kraken fight, I stepped up so that way I can get some pain meds, since my back was hurting. I remember I tried to make a joke to my girlfriend that I was going to take the whole bottle and pretended to shake the bottle into my mouth. The cap had actually fallen off during the whole thing, and a bunch ended up spilling into my mouth, which caused me to gag and spit all of them out. My girlfriend and I began laughing hysterically just because it was just a real funny situation. I guess my brother got a bit angry and got up to tell me to either come back to the game or they were going to call it a day and leave. I was a bit annoyed about everything and told him just to relax and I was just getting some meds. He started doing that thing that you do when you like shout without trying to draw attention to yourself. Kind of like that thing mothers do with their kids when they're out shopping. By this point, I was over it. I told him just to finish the combat encounter and leave my house. I wasn't going to continue playing. He then tried to get me to stay by saying that only Carl and Zav were even able to hit the Kraken, which it finally made me snap on him. I can't remember everything that was said, but the general idea came to this. He had been making combat encounters completely up to Zav's level. The fact that the only player in our party that could hit anything was because we had explicitly upgraded our gears several times over what should be necessary, only shows how flawed his system really was. The fact that he was relying so heavily on me to make the encounter work just meant that the rest of the party wasn't going to be able to do anything themselves, which doesn't amount to a fun encounter. After that, I went in my room, heard him go back to the table, cursing my name up and down as he packed up his stuff. Wow. And this ended up being a lot longer than I was expecting. I figured I'd be talking a lot more about the other DM NPCs my brother had made over the years, but I guess I got a bit too carried away talking about his Alchemist. But I think that's fine. It'll give me something to talk about for the next video. I hope this was informative, or at least entertaining. I don't want to discourage DMs from creating DM NPCs, but I do hope that I can explain how out of control things can get when you let your ego take control of the character and your campaign. Anyways guys, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again in the next video.